the handyman surprised me with his big tools, a shocking tale of temptation and self-discovery. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Silent Confessions, here with another gripping story that will take you on a roller coaster of emotions. Today we explore a tale of love, loyalty, temptation, and self-discovery. I promise, this one will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about relationships. So settle in, and let's dive into Emily's unexpected journey, a woman whose seemingly perfect life cracked open when she crossed paths with someone during a very routine kitchen renovation. Stay with me until the end, because Emily's story isn't just about temptation. It's about what we discover about ourselves when desire and reality collide. Emily was the kind of person many would envy. She had it all, or so everyone thought: a stable and loving husband, a beautiful home, and a steady rhythm to her life. From the outside, it looked picture perfect. But as Emily would soon learn, perfection often hides the faults beneath. When Emily decided to renovate her kitchen, it wasn't meant to be about anything more than functional touches. New cabinets, modern countertops, a fresh coat of paint. What she didn't expect was that this mundane home improvement would unlock a part of her life she had kept tightly sealed. That's when Eric entered the scene, her handyman. Handsome, charming, but not overly polished. There was a ruggedness about him, almost like the dust he worked in followed him everywhere, giving him an air of mystery. Eric was polite, professional, and focused, but there was something in his eyes, something that Emily couldn't quite put her finger on. And at first, she didn't try. The first few days of the renovation were uneventful. Eric showed up on time, laid out his tools with precision, and got straight to work. Emily stayed out of his way, offering him coffee or water when she passed by. Their conversations were cordial but brief, comments about the weather or the progress of the project. Just small talk. But soon things began to shift. Eric started sharing little glimpses of his life. He talked about growing up in a nearby town, how he loved working with his hands because it gave him a sense of purpose. Emily found herself lingering a bit longer during these conversations, intrigued by his sincerity. Unlike most people she encountered, Eric had a way of speaking that felt real. Still, she chalked it up to nothing more than pleasant interactions. Nothing more, nothing less. Or so she told herself. As the renovation went on, Emily began noticing things she hadn't before. When Eric smiled, it wasn't just polite, it was warm, disarming. The way he moved, confidently, deliberately, held her attention in ways she hadn't expected. And then there was the way he listened. Really listened. They began to share more stories, perspectives, even quiet moments. It was small at first. One day, as Emily stood by watching him measure the kitchen counters, he paused and asked, "Do you ever feel like you're on autopilot? Like life's just moving too fast and you're barely holding the reins?" The question caught Emily off guard. She hesitated, then confessed, "Sometimes, but I've learned not to think about it too much." Eric simply nodded, his gaze thoughtful. There was comfort in his presence, a comfort Emily hadn't realized she had been missing. That night, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, she couldn't find peace in her carefully structured world. She thought about Eric's question, and about Eric himself. Why had his words stayed with her? Why was she replaying their conversations in her head? She shook her head, trying to silence the thoughts. She loved her husband, truly. Yet there was no denying that something about Eric had stirred a restlessness within her, a feeling she couldn't ignore. The days that followed only deepened this emotional turmoil. Every interaction with Eric felt charged, though neither of them ever said or did anything inappropriate. It was all in the small, almost imperceptible gestures. The way his hand lingered slightly too long as he handed her a pencil. The way his eyes seemed to linger, searching for something unsaid. As Emily became more introspective, she began looking at her life and her marriage through a new lens. She wasn't unhappy, not exactly, but her life had settled into a routine that left little room for excitement, passion, or even surprises. Somewhere along the way, she and her husband had stopped trying to impress each other. They were comfortable, yes, but was comfort enough? And then there was Eric. With him, there was a spark, a curiosity, a charge she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about him, it was about who she became when he was around. She felt alive, seen, heard. Was that something she had been missing all along? Emily struggled with these thoughts, torn between loyalty and desire. She hated that she was even entertaining the idea of Eric as more than a handyman. But the heart doesn't play by rules, does it? One afternoon, as Eric was finishing up the backsplash, Emily found herself standing nearby. They were laughing about a silly story he had shared when suddenly the laughter faded, leaving behind an almost deafening silence. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them said a word. It wasn't what he said, it wasn't what she said, it was simply the unspoken feeling that filled the space between them. The intensity of it sent Emily's heart racing. She could feel the pull, the temptation to blur the boundaries they'd carefully maintained. But before either of them could say or do anything more, Emily turned and walked away, her mind spinning. She had come dangerously close to crossing a line she couldn't uncross, and that terrified her. That evening, Emily sat alone in her newly renovated kitchen, staring at the fresh paint and neatly installed counters. Everything looked perfect, but was she? The emotional turbulence of the past few weeks had revealed things about herself she could no longer ignore. She realized something crucial. Her attraction to Eric was less about him and more about what he represented, a reminder of the feelings and excitement she had been missing in her own life. Her connection to Eric wasn't about betrayal. It was a wake-up call to address the stagnation that had quietly taken root in her marriage. With this clarity, Emily made a decision. She wouldn't let this moment of temptation define her. Instead, it would propel her to be honest with herself and with her husband. The next day, Emily thanked Eric for his hard work and professionalism as the project came to a close. Their parting was bittersweet. Unspoken words lingered in the air, but both of them understood there was no path forward. For Emily, the real journey was just beginning. She sat down with her husband and shared her feelings, not about Eric, but about the state of their relationship. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. Together, they decided to reinvest in their marriage, to find ways to bring back the spontaneity and passion they had lost over the years. Emily's story is more than just a tale of temptation. It's a reflection on the human condition. Temptation isn't always about betrayal. In many cases, it's about self-discovery. It's a mirror that forces us to confront hidden desires and unspoken truths about ourselves and our relationships. For Emily, Eric was never the destination. He was the detour. A detour that led her to a deeper understanding of herself and the life she wanted to live. Emily's story leaves us with questions that don't have easy answers. Is emotional connection outside a relationship ever harmless? Can it serve as a wake-up call without destruction? In a world that often paints fidelity in black and white, stories like Emily's remind us that life is lived in shades of gray. So, what can we take away from Emily's journey? For one, it's a reminder to never stop nurturing our relationships. It's easy to fall into routines, to lose sight of what brought us together in the first place. And most importantly, it's a reminder that moments of weakness or temptation aren't always failures. Sometimes they're opportunities for growth. Have you ever experienced a moment that made you question yourself or your relationships? What did you learn from it? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, stories, or reflections. Thank you for joining me today on Silent Confessions. Emily's story is one I'll never forget, and I hope it's left you with your own insights to reflect on. Until next time, reminding you that life's most powerful stories are often hidden in the quiet corners of our hearts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales that will make you think, feel, and reflect. See you in the next confession.